You tune in to GMN. The Gender Research and Advocacy Project from the Legal Assistance Centre finalised a research report called Seeking Safety last year. Now, the primary purpose of the study was to assess the application of the Domestic Violence Act. To follow up on the research findings and recommendations, the LAC has secured funding through the US President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. It's called PEPFAR, and the US government to prepare a roadshow in 2014-2015. Joining me in the studio with the details is the Legal Assistance Centre's Yolande Engelbrecht, as well as Public Affairs Officer Priscilla Hernandez from the US government and PEPFAR. Good morning, ladies. Thank you so much for coming in.
Good morning. Good morning.
Domestic violence and HIV/AIDS. What exactly is the connection there?
Well, I think they have a very close connection. You know, HIV and domestic violence, as we all know, is not just something that actually affects the society in whole, but also the family in particular. It can also be a major health and development risk, you know, in terms of including HIV and so on, and unwanted pregnancies. And, you know, so often these type of things are concealed.
Yeah.
And they are very much likely to go unpunished.
We're talking about issues such as rape within marriage,
exactly,
and those kind of things.
Exactly,
yeah.
Those kind of things, which can be a major health risk in a relationship, whether it's a marriage or whether it's a normal relationship.
Yeah. The US government is funding the LAC's research. Why have you decided to get involved?
Well, one of the key things for us is investing our resources with partners who are actually on the ground doing the work to save the lives of women and children. As you know, and as we've talked about many times, this is not just a health issue, it's also an economic issue.
Yes.
A country that treats its women and girls well will have their entire population contributing to their economic growth.
Yeah.
And we firmly believe that we've got to work at the grassroots level, investing with partners like the Legal Assistance Center, and quite frankly, governments like Namibia that have the political will to do something about this scourge.
Yeah. All right. So a planned roadshow is in the works. That's for this year and next year. Tell us about that. Who will you be meeting, and what areas do you envisage covering?
Okay. We will be visiting 15 courts altogether. That's not the magistrates' courts. We are planning to visit at least 7 to 8 courts this year, starting in June. Obviously, we have to start at home, which is now Windhoek. So we will start in Windhoek, and then we will proceed to other courts like Okahanya, Otavi, Grootfontein, and so on. We already got authorization from the Ministry of Justice, so it's just the logistics of the whole planned visits and so on that is still in the process. But we actually are hoping to meet with every court official that you have in Namibia in terms of the magistrates courts, the magistrates, the prosecutors, you know, there's social workers involved, there's police officers, and also other court officials that deals with gender-based violence and HIV-related cases reported at courts, you know. So, yeah, it's going to be quite a good outreach project.
Now, Yolande, as a legal practitioner, from your point of view, how well implemented is the Domestic Violence Act in the country?
Well, we have done a research last year, the Legal Assistance Centre, which we also launched last year. And as mentioned also, you know, it particularly looks at the issues of women and children, how we suffer. You know, our rates in Namibia is quite high. 9 out of 10 women in Namibia are victims of domestic violence and so on. So many of them are also applying for protection orders, but we mainly concentrated on the loopholes in the current act. You know, our laws are very good, but in terms of implementing them, it's where the challenges are normally. So we have looked at different areas of the current act, and also there were some main focuses in the act that came during our study and so on. Yeah.
All right. Well, Priscilla, you know, during recent months, Namibia as a country, we've seen an upsurge of domestic violence, gender-based violence. It's becoming a very aggressive problem for our country. Is that why the US government is kind of helping hands, you know, taking our hands, trying to combat this?
Quite frankly, as President Obama said recently, this is a global problem, and it's so high on his agenda that he wants to be the global leader and help countries that have, like I said, the political will and the partners on the ground. Through PEPFAR, they're not just saving lives in addressing gender-based violence. They're raising public awareness. There may be more reporting because we're investing in these programs. And that is exactly what we are striving to do. We're also working with the courts in mediation and arbitration. It's a whole gamut from public awareness on the ground to working through rule of law. So yes, we are paying particular attention.
And these are the ways that that PEPFAR is investing.
Exactly, and particularly, like I said, when people say it's on the rise, is it on the rise? Is it reporting that's on the rise? And is this proof that the grassroots efforts are working to raise the level of awareness and the attention of governments to actually tackle this problem?
So why was it decided upon a roadshow? Why not a different kind of measure, like a training workshop or that kind of thing? Why a roadshow? Is awareness the first point of entry?
Well, the main focus in terms of the outreach program we planned was, we need to also look at the service providers in the country. We have done a lot of, as you know, LSE is involved in a lot of workshops, training workshops for the communities and so on. But what about the service providers? What about the law enforcement agencies? They also need to be consulted and so on. So this is not the first type of roadshow that the LSE is also involved in.
There needs to be more synergy.
There needs to be more synergy because when it comes to the actual act, mainly it's the law enforcement agencies that is involved in dealing in and making sure that the implementation of the current law is there. So we basically want to educate not only the society but also the law enforcement agencies, the people who's dealing on a daily basis, whose profession is actually to go to work and help this victim of violence.
Well, unfortunately, we are dealing with certain time constraints during today's broadcast. Any last words from the two of you?
Well,
bottom line is we're trying to save lives so we can improve the economic prosperity of the country. And I think as long as everybody has that shared goal
and that common vision.
Exactly. And we see the end, whether it's an AIDS-free generation because we no longer have the health risks, or an improved court system, improved service providers who are able to help the victims.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a global problem, so we need to tackle it globally. We cannot say that Namibia is having this high rates of gender-based violence or HIV infections, but, it's a global problem.
It's not isolated.
It's not isolated. We need to remember that, and we need to strive to, always better whatever we have in the system.
Well, thank you very much for coming in, taking time to chat to us. That was the LSE's Yolande Engelbrecht, as well as Public Affairs Officer Priscilla Hernandez from the United States government and PEPFAR, speaking to us about the implementation of the Domestic Violence Act, as well as the upcoming roadshow between this year and the next. Stay tuned. More news coming up on GMN.